Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ashutosh Jha, and I will be speaking on the typology of master planning as a part of Glass Academy Enlightened Spaces on World Cities Day. You all are settled down now. Let's start. Let's start our presentation. So what we have today is a site context. We discuss a little more about the site. Then we have site analysis and planning. Then we have key principles, our vision, design ideas. Let me take you through one by one. So we in Gensler believe that architecture must be of its time, of its place, and of its pattern. The project, we thought we had a long discussion with the client, and the client is one of the leading developer in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and India. And we thought that we will try and bring the timelessness, elegant. The project has to look elegant. The project has to look classic. Project has to look compelling, provocative, sophisticated, flexible, high technology, sustainable, hyper-connected. So these are some of the words which we noted, and we thought that we will place it right in the beginning of our presentation. So some of our design solution hopefully will reflect these. Project aspirations to create a place. It's very important to come up with a place where you feel like, where you feel like visiting again and again. It's also important that that design which you are going to come up with doesn't disturb the neighborhood and context. So sit pretty well within the context, and you will see what I mean by sitting well within the context in the next few slides. Allow mixed uses. Mixed uses are most difficult to deal with because you are dealing with a different use. You are dealing with different use, and in order to in order to blend all the uses of mixed use is very, very important. Provide pedestrian-friendly environment. We all know that within a campus, we need to create a campus, and the campus has to be walkable. If you don't have a walkable campus in this time and age, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to integrate that campus. Design an open space network. Local culture. We need to understand a little bit more about local culture. However, Gurgaon is like a cosmopolitan city, suburbs of Delhi. But yes, and environmentally responsible. Very, very important that how you deal with the air quality, how you deal with this energy, how you deal with the daylight. These are the key issues. So we just listed them right in the beginning. Now, what you see is a slide called create a place, that we need to have a place. You need to have a destination where you would like to visit. Otherwise, it will end up being one of so many projects you see these days. Integrate the neighborhood with the context. So what you see here, and just to give you a little bit brief about the site, if you're familiar with the Delhi Gurgaon, the site is located, if you're coming from Mehrauli Road, so if you're coming from Qutub Minar, which takes you further towards Chhatarpur, Mehrauli, and if you take that route, which comes to Gurgaon, just after the Delhi finishes, you will find this site. So the immediate context is here, the green spaces, the Qutub Minar, allowed mixed use. Some of the images which sort of reflect the mixed use mood or mixed use nature of the Gurgaon and surrounding areas. Pedestrian friendly environments, very, very important that you have to create a place which can be experienced through while walking. You have to have enough outdoor space, and climate of Delhi Gurgaon is extreme. Not unlike Bangalore. So in cold, in winter, it's important to sit outside, to enjoy the sun. And during summer, it's also important to be appropriately shaded. So you can walk, but you can be appropriately shaded. I think that's one of the key. Then design as an open space network. This we can get into detail when we get into the further slides. Respect local culture. As I told you earlier, that Gurgaon is more of a cosmopolitan, but we will try and evolve, understand what is a local culture particularly for this project. Environmentally responsible, very, very important that you use Zeriescape. The trees which can be planted naturally belongs to that place. Then also very important to have passive design strategies like daylighting, and I will tell you a little more about the daylighting. Then you have to make sure that your building orientations has to be right for effective daylighting, which we can discuss a little more in detail a little later. Materiality has to be, you have to have environmentally responsible materials, and something which you can get it within 100 200 kilometer. So overall, we have to be very environmentally responsible. Any project which you do these days, you have to be environmentally responsible. So these are some of the key words now that set you up for the site context. So let me, I gave you a little bit of brief that the site is 43 acre. It's a typical, developer project. So the way it works, that the 43 acre is divided into two parts. I will not take you in a more complexity, but this out of 43 acres, 7 acre belongs to the landowner, and the development partner will have 37 acre, which both of them will develop in 5 phases, and that 5 phases will have 9 million square feet of space, which is huge. If you look at the density over 43 acre, 9 million is huge. And out of that 9 million, 7 million has to be offices. 1 million, close to 1 million will be retail. And there was no, I mean, retail can be any type. Retail can be high-end street, retail can be mall type, retail can be box type. There was no limitation when we started this project regarding the retail. So sort of kind of, we have the authority, or we have the liberty to design the retail space or define the retail space. And then you have a very high-end residential area, which will also be 1 million, which will be key. So the idea was that you not only create a place where anybody would like to come and visit, anybody will feel attracted, connected, so that person can, so this will be sort of landmark. Also, the idea was to live and work. So you have a workspace, you have a lifestyle, you have a residential apartment which caters all your need. So as you know that all the residential apartment these days has to have all the amenities. So when you look at the residential apartment doesn't exist in isolation. You will have a residential apartment. With that, you will have parking for that residential apartment. You have all the amenities, which involves gym, banquet space, sometime banquet space, club areas, library, your social space. So that has to be planned. Then again, if you look at the retail works in a very different way. You need to understand the component of it. If you are designing a mall, if you're designing a typical retail, then typically your lower ground floor will be hypermarket. Then you have the anchor shops on ground first floor with the what we call vanilla shops. And then towards the third floor, you will start finding more recreation space. You will have gaming areas. You will have food court, and top you will have theaters. So here we didn't. They told us very clearly that you don't have to deal with the theaters, or rather food courts, but you have to create. You have to create atmosphere. You have to create. You have a liberty to define those retail space. So that was pretty interesting, and that reflected extremely well into the program, into the project later on when you see the design. And then, as you know, the offices these days are pretty minimalist. You have to have their own entrance. Then on typical floor, you have to have amenities for the offices. Sometime not so much in Delhi and Gurgaon, but sometime even roof terraces. Half of the terraces will be used for services, keeping equipments like your cooling tower and other stuff, but half of the terrace will normally use for recreation. The very important aspect is that the workplace where you work needs to be daylit throughout the day. So that's the context we dealt with. 9 million space, 9 million square feet, and then you have a humongous requirement of parking. I haven't discussed too much about the parking yet, but we dealt with the 4 level of car park, and we accommodated close to 17,000 cars, huge cars. So the entire transportation, looking at the people you are dealing in the offices, how they will come, what will be the share ride. That's another different world, which we will talk a little bit in detail a little later. So that's your site, that's your project. Let's discuss a little more about the site context. So if you see the map, what we have highlighted is the international airport. Again, if you're familiar with the Delhi, this is your international airport. And I was telling you a little earlier that the Qutub Minar, this is the road which is which starts from Mehroli, from Qutub Minar, comes to Chhatarpur, and then takes you towards the Gurgaon, and the site is located here. And then if you go further, you get into the thick of Gurgaon, go towards the Mahatma Gandhi Road, and you will find plenty of mall, plenty of IT buildings, plenty of residential development. So that's where the site is located. You see these rings. It talks about what you can find in 2.5 kilometer range, what you can find in 8.5 kilometer range. We also highlighted, in order to understand the context, what is the RTL road, metro yellow line. So the metro is right in front of our site, metro blue line, and then national highway. So this is a national highway which connects Delhi to Jaipur. Well, we get into a little more detail. It's very important when you deal with the master planning. So that's our site, which is about 43 acre. And if you can see, there's only one road which is connected to the entire site. And the site has a beautiful view of this Aravalli range of hills, which is, anyway, very less left. And then you can see some of the key mall located within Gurgaon. You can see the main roadway, you can see the highway which is connected. It's very, very important to understand the context, because unless you understand the context, it's very difficult to come up with a unique solution. You have so many malls here, megacity mall, Sahara mall. So one of the key questions was that how you come up with your retail space, how different your retail space will be from what you have in the neighborhood. So that's the reason we got into a little more detail. We understood the kind of offices we have around, the kind of mall we have around, the kind of residential apartment we have around. So we can come up with something which is more innovative, which is a little more different, and a lot more meaningful. Now we get into site analysis. So normally when we finish understanding the site, then we get into analysis of site and planning principle. So this is what you will see. Now you can see the broader context of site. You see the kind of development you have in surrounding. Normally we trace this through Google, through our softwares, and we develop this entire detailed context. This is very important, because once you align your building, or what we call setting up within the context, it really helps you. It really helps you also with scale of the project. I'm pretty sure that when I personally found, during my 23 year of work career, I found that having a right scale for a project is very, very important. And understanding of that is extremely critical. So I think you can see the entire context. Now you can see the road network within the context. And we have NDA, non-disclosure agreement, so I will not going to disclose the client's name. And neither this is the final presentation. So this is one of the in-between early presentation. The idea here is to discuss about design principle, talk more about process than the result. Result is outcome of your process. So if your process if your process is meaningful, then the result will come up unique, and that's what we feel. So here you can see, earlier you saw the road network. Here you can see the metro network. In next slide, you will see the green spaces around, the green interventions. So as I told you, that you have a beautiful Aravalli range on this side, and that really influenced our design process. Then you can see the visibility, what sort of visibility you have from the site. You can see the context a little bit around that. You have low-rise building, on these two sides, and then, as I told you, that you have Aravalli Hill Range, then you have forest on the other side. And if you are familiar with Delhi Gurgaon, then you can easily relate to that. Next to the site, you have few high-rise projects. In fact, right on the right-hand side, what you see is a hotel, very well-known hotel. and then you have the elevated metro corridor right in the front. So that sets you up to the context. You understand your surroundings, you understand the green space, you understand the most important, the circulation, the traffic circulation, the traffic flow, where the traffic will come, where the people will come, how they will commute, how they will access your site, what is next to your site. And then with that understanding, you sort of get into the design. This is a very critical site. I'm very fond of, unfortunately, I couldn't keep 30, 40 slide because we have, again, a non-disclosure agreement, which could have told you more about daylight and other analysis, which I'm very fond of. I'm very fond of, I'm a great advocate of, I very strongly believe in having a passive design strategy considered right in the beginning. So daylight, if you can orient your building well, if you can orient your building north-south, you will get a good daylight. And then, of course, with the simulation, with understanding of where your sun will be in summer and winter, you can design the facade, which will, because one of the key concern when you're dealing with such a large mega project is a cost. So sometime, you come up with a good design solution, but in the name of value engineer, all those features, all those facade features goes away, and you don't get what you intended right in the beginning. So I think with the approach of passive design, you can design smart facades, and I think that will be critical towards the well-being of an occupant, and also from sustainability standpoint. This is a wind flow, and this was also critical in our design process because we tried capturing the wind within our campus, and that you will see in all three of our options. So we looked at the daylight, we looked at the wind, how the wind will come, and then what you see is the dark black, or rather grayish patch, is the 37 acre of, so this entire land is about 43 acre, and what you see as a green gray patch is the 37 acre of land which developer will own and lease, and what you see is the white patch which developer will develop it for the owners, landowners. That's a 7 acre land, but we will not get into that kind of complexity because that's not our objective. Our objective is to understand the overall process of master plan. Here I carefully picked up this project because this 43 acre with this sort of density allows you to get a little bit of insight into master plan. This also allows you to look at this master plan more at architecture level. So if you can also call it, I mean, while working on it, we realized that this is more of a site plan, where you have a master plan features, but you are also coming at architectural scale, where you can measure each and every building. The images which you will see will not be, you won't find them a final or polished architecture images. Those are early architecture interventions. So if you see those glasses, those are that further got articulated in next stage. So the idea here is not to present you the architecture piece, just to present you the process, that how we came up with this scale of master plan, because most of the building or most of the project you find these days in India will be in this scale, which is around 35 acre, 40 acre, sometimes 50 acre, 60 acre. Very few times you will see the project will go beyond 100 acre or 120 acre. So I thought this is a more suitable project where you can, stay on a master plan side and also look into architecture a little bit. Here, let me tell you that we followed the Huda guideline, or the local municipal guideline. Also, we took a lot of help, or we took a lot of reference from National Building Code 2016, especially for fire life safety, for earthquake. So these two guidelines we followed. And as you see here, that the access is only from the one side. So that was one of the challenge we had. Before I get into design, let me tell you that when you conceive this sort of project, one of the key aspects is also to design a suitable infrastructure. And when I say suitable infrastructure, is your road network within the campus, For today's discussion, I will not get into too much detail for transportation, but transportation is a different world. You have to understand the density of, the capacity of your road, whether those roads are appropriate for a number of vehicles you are planning or not. Also, the number of vehicles comes from your bylaws and comes from your, and which typically suggests for 50 square meter of a fair area, you have to consider one car for office buildings. So it's a pretty dense, and then you need to understand that how the offices will operate, what will be the right share percentage, where they will drop off, how deep you want the cars to come within the site, where how you want to control it. So that transportation, that vehicular movement is a bit of its own world. It's a bit of challenge, and it's very important that you address it right, because if you don't address it right, then you will create a lot of security issues within your campus, and also the intent of pedestrian movement within the campus get hampered a great deal. So it's very, very important, and I will not get into too much detail, but I'll give you a little bit of hint how we dealt with that. Now let's get into, so this is about phases, not so relevant, but let me tell you the red one is a phase one, and we have to and this came from the client. Then phase two, phase three, phase four is right in the middle, and the phase five is what I told you is a landowner's plot. This is a very important slide that we discuss about land patterns. Land patterns, when we say land patterns, it's essentially we are trying to understand from the larger master plan, which is this, that how you're building, how we can orient the building. So we realize that maybe this is a one way which we can orient the building. Then we looked into a little more detail regarding the access within the larger context, and how best we can accommodate our buildings, or can we orient a little bit at 45-degree. And then we also look at this for purely for the views, so you can have the views towards this side, which is a beautiful Aravali range. So this is what we learned from the land reference. Now, the vision for Gurgaon is integration, connectivity, resiliency, sustainability. Let me tell you that when I was working in Dubai, one of my projects was located in Business Bay. And I came to know that no matter where you develop in Business Bay, you have to follow the larger master plan. I'm not critical, I'm not criticizing. All I'm saying is that for similar sort of vision we need for our upcoming cities like Gurgaon, Noida, Pune, so we follow a larger master plan vision set up by the government. Unfortunately, in our case, it's not there. So we have to consider these developments a little bit in isolation. That's where we thought that we might promote integration, connectivity, resiliency, and sustainability. Center of gravity is very important, as I told you, that this has to be a place where you want to visit. When we say integration, it's a technology, data, innovation, connectivity, circulation, vibrance, community, resiliency, healthy. I mean, of course, after COVID, you must have realized the importance of health. All the spaces, whether it's a retail space, a residential space, or office space, has to be healthy. Sustainability, purity, simplicity, and clarity. I'm a lead accredited professional myself. I got a lead accreditation way back in 2006. I was very passionate. I'm still very passionate about it. I do most of simulations, daylight, especially daylight simulation myself early in the design process. But I feel at times when we are catering to the ratings, we don't look at sustainability holistically. At times, not every time. So we need to understand that what is the critical component for your site or for your project. What are the problem you're trying to solve? You may get or you may not get accreditation. That's a matter of, that's a more of a commercial thing. But it's important that you understand the sustainability requirement for that particular project and you resolve it. Interwoven, and this is a kind of craft. It's very important to, in our studio, we normally say that you use all cutting edge smart technology to make sure that your design process is more authentic, more refined, but also don't forget, don't miss on your craft. So you will see some of sketches, hand sketches also, which we added. and which added a lot of value. It's very important to weave our craft within our building. Obviously, this is what you're going to see is a very early design process, so you may not realize where we added the craft. But in final outcome, let me tell you that a lot of building facade which we developed was heavily influenced with the local craftsmanship. Some of the context you have, all we know that we have Latins building in New Delhi, Taj Mahal, Agra. These are some of the context which you can, and very interestingly, Stepwell, because Stepwell was a key concept for one of our option, which you will see a little later. Adlaj Stepwell, fantastic. Stepwells have a fantastic story to tell, and hopefully you will find that in one of our design option, the Stepwell is extremely well integrated. I'm just keeping a check on time. Some of the buildings developed, designed in 80s. Well, that's our site, neighborhood integration, center of gravity, create energy, reduce energy, buy energy if needed. Net zero is a very very abused word, net carbon. But yes, of course, I mean we need to think very carefully about utilizing using energy, and as much as through the design or through other technology, as much as you can reduce the energy, it's good for us. That should be my. I always feel that should be weaved within your design process itself. Well, that's a study for a little bit about scale comparison, so you can understand the scale of the of the site. So what we did is that we just took a couple of neighboring building, and these are two of our other master planning project, and just to understand the scale. Well, this is what I told you earlier. I will not get into too much detail, but here you can see that we are dealing with 91 lakh square feet of space, and retail was about 1.1 million. Offices is about 6.9 million, and residential is about 1 million. So we keep that in a focus. It's essentially office, lots of office building, 80%. Or rather 75% was office building, 12% was retail, and 12% was residential. So open space, again, quickly I will take you through this. Some of the ideas we had, the buildings in a park. So what if the entire site is a park, and then you just place a building, connected park, central park. Central park is a pretty common concept. And then, as I told you earlier, I'll not get into too much detail for the parking, but the idea was that you don't see any car coming in. So you have a couple of these solutions, and you get into basement with your car park. You don't see anything on surface. Surface is completely walkable. Well, a couple of concepts again: the park, urban grid, landmark, boulevard, and market. Finally, we stick to three concepts: park, boulevard, and market. This we integrated into our design. So let's start with the park, the first concept. The park was, the entire concept was around the stepwell. So you will see the center of gravity here, center of your site was stepwell with innovative retail around. So we looked at, you have to leave the setback, as you know that when you work on a large scale project, based on your height and based on your local regulations, you have to leave the setback. Here we have a height limitation of about 70 meters. So the setback was about 16 meters. Again, you have to leave mandatory open space. So you can see where we left the mandatory open space. Then very important that we have to follow the Vastu principles. So at master plan scale, we make sure that all your infrastructure aspect, your sewage treatment plant, your transformers, all your infrastructure element was planned as per the Vastu. Then the pedestrian movement around the site, and the phasing, you can see phasing strategy on the right. How we have ensured that the wind comes within our site and get used by the building. So the buildings are oriented as per wind, and vehicular movement, minimal vehicular movement. So here, if you see, what you see here is all your office towers. At the ground, you have a retail. In the center, you have very innovative retail placed around a stepwell, and the residential part was on this side, which can have a very clear view of Aravali Hills with their necessary amenities. So what you see here is this same ground coverage. Ground coverage also, as you know, when you work on a large scale project, ideally the ground coverage should be within 55%. Here it is 53%. You can see the drop off zone for all the offices, very critical to have identity for all the offices. Then green coverage was 57%, and the car, which I told you, is around 17,000. So that, with that said, let me take you through this. So what you see here is a Nolly plan, and in red you can see the buildings at the ground level, and then you see the higher levels. So higher level, these are all offices, and towards the end you will find all residential buildings. This was a plan, and if you look at the office building, so what you have is office building. What you can see is office building. Here you see the residential part, the mandatory economical weaker section development which we have to undertake, and then below, I'm not sure if you can able to see the yellow one, which is all retail, and the center was all retail, but in a stepwell formation. So the idea was that you come in here, and you get dropped off. You get dropped off to your respective building. This is a mall, which is more of a box mall at the below. On top, you have office buildings. And then you have this standalone office building. And if you have to come to the residential development, then you can take up this route, which we have greened. And then you can come into the residential development, which will have their own amenities. The residential building were located at angles, so no building can see each other, face each other. So you have a privacy of space, and you can see the beautiful Aravali Hills. Again, all the vehicular drop off, all the details, you can find it here. I will run quickly because I was just doing a time check and realized I'm already 30 minutes in. I have to present two more options. This is more of a basement. You can see the ramp, exit, and then you see some of the services space. Of course, this is a very early stage of design, so we couldn't manage to get into too much detail. Again, as I told you earlier, here I don't have time to take you through the entire transportation detail, but there's a lot of thought went in how how many vehicles will come at what time, where it will get dropped off, how it will be controlled, how do we manage to make sure that these vehicles doesn't interfere with the activities on the ground, so grounds are remain vehicle free. Of course, you have to consider the vehicle for fire life safety movement. I mean, for the fire tender, you have to consider it, but fire tender will come once in a while. We made sure that you have the enough free space on the ground floor where you can move or you can walk. Here you can see the stacking of spaces, which I call stacking of spaces. So you can see that how this offices were stacked. And as I told you earlier, that this is some of our hand sketches which we developed and which we also put it as a part of presentation. Can talk to you a little bit about space. Normally, we are not very, we are not very keen or fond of having a cantilever, but sometimes this cantilever space, so this cantilever buildings can create a nice space below. Again, what you see here is not a professional render which we developed in-house. This is all by our team members. We normally use softwares like Grasshopper, Rhino. So this is all in-house. I mean, the final version we use the commercial rendering, but this was all in-house. Again, at larger master plan, what sort of space is the space you have when we discuss so much about walkability within the campus. You can see that. Again, stepwell concept in a different formation. You have stepped retail, and the retail. So that's how we define the retail. That you have box retail outside, which was about 0.5 million, 5 lakh square feet, and another 5 lakh square feet will happen here, where you will have a mix of retail and food court. So you have plenty of terraces where you can sit and eat. And also the idea was to bring this closer to the stepwell concept. Some of the reference image which we used, some of at the lower level, again, the hand sketches, some of the images which you can see from that stepwell space. I'll quickly run through again some of the representative images. Office buildings, as you know through the program, it was pretty dense. So this is again not all glass surface. This was just a work in progress. we articulated, and as I told you that we took a lot of local craft, in consideration while developing these office facades. And most of the office buildings are, if you see, located, most of the facade are north and south. So we use the passive design technology. As you know that, as I told you, I'm very passionate about daylight. Normally here, this is central core, and the floor depth is about 15-meter. Floor to floor height, office floor height is 4-meter. So rule of thumb says that your daylight penetration will be 2.5 times. So for 4-meter, for 10-meter, you will have a daylight penetration. And all we need to make sure while designing it that you get 300 lux level annually within minimum 50% of your occupant space. That's a good metrics to judge your design. So we achieved the same here. Some of the images, large scale images, again, you can see all the 4-level basement is full of parking, and then we sort of created the sunk court with the building above. That creates a nice space. You can see here again how the retail was. So as I told you that this is a box retail, then you have retail below all the buildings, residential piece, economical vehicle section, and the offices, office buildings. Okay, I'm again keeping a time check. It's 38 minutes. We are in, so we have about 15 minutes left. We have 2 more options to go, and then I can take up your questions. So this concept was more of a market, or you can call it a central green. Just a reference image of what we thought about a market. So, circular space where you get in. Again, your side setback, open side strategy, Vastu considerations for larger, for larger in-out infrastructure, placing right infrastructure, having a right sort of building, because client is kind of very keen on, getting the Vastu aspect right for a larger master plan. Land use diagram. Again, phasing, you see on the left-hand side, you will see the pedestrian access. So this is sort of a central pedestrian access, which takes you through and through. And from there, you can get into these side networks. Phasing, again, is the same, phase 5, phase 1, phase 2, 3, 4. Wind, again, you will see through the design, and here the design was slightly different, semicircular. So you get the wind, you get a large amount of wind within your central space, which is again sort of retail. Drop-off zones, very important, where you get dropped off if you are a visitor. Again, the basement extent, residential, recreational green coverage. You need to have these mandatory green space. Nolly plan, again, looking at floor below and floor above. So part of building which is above, which is largely, this is the residential part, what you see, and then what you see is all office buildings. This was kind of very interesting. You have this circular form in between, and you get into the space. And when I get in, when I go a little bit further, you can see the interesting spaces which came up. So you have this access, you have the central access, which takes you all the way here. You can have this side access, which can take you to the residential part, or which can, you can, this is a periphery access, this is a periphery road, which you can go all around. You can also, that helps you to get dropped off in your office building, as well as you can take this central part and you can come in and go out. Very interesting project. Again, you can see the vehicular movement. So here the idea was that you come in and you can go out. And again, you can come in like this, get dropped off, and then you can kind of go out. Basement, again, I will not get into too much detail here. Here you can see the fire tender movement, pedestrian movement, the lobby, ramp, everything in detail for this large scale development. Here you can see the distribution of areas. It's pretty similar to what I explained you in the last project, but the space, etc., was very, very interesting. Here you can see the different level, again, the sunk court concept. The idea was to have this retail space largely 5 lakh square feet devoted to your food court, a little bit of merchandise, but most of them are food court. And then you have the box retail where you can have more regular stuff. And these sunk can happen on multiple level. Again, hand sketch. We love doing hand sketches in our studio, so we thought let's present it. And in this was a premium residential apartment, which we placed it right at the edge, so that that residential apartment can, one side can have view of the forest, the other side they can have the view of this beautiful court, beautiful central court. Some of the reference images here, you can see this is a residential tower which can have both side views, and then office tower. It's very important for these sort of development to create to create views. And most of the time in dense urban setup, it's very, and as I told you earlier, since our master plan was, I mean, most of the city, the master plan is not the larger master plan. It does not have a vision, not considered with these sort of development. Therefore, it's very important for us when you work on a such scale of project that we create inward looking space where you can have a view. And if you can get a good external view, that is, I mean, then you are lucky. But it's essential to have an environment within, or larger open space within, which can be utilized, also can be looked upon. Some of the reference images, again, some of the hand sketches which can talks about the master planning principle, that you have the vehicular road, but next to that you have pedestrian. And not only you will work within the office space, but also in the open, large open space where you can sit, where you can work. Some more images, all prepared within the studio. These are some of the very early views of residential development. Very early two towers of residential development, and then this is the third premium tower. We focused a lot about residential towers as well, that these residential towers should have a difference and a premiumness. Why anybody will go and buy this residential tower? So not about the amenities, also about location, how you locate these towers, where you locate these towers, what kind of views they will get. So if you, for example, if you look at this tower, they will get this Aravali view, and they will get the inside. So this side of apartment will get the inside view, this side of apartment will get the Aravali view. So there was a lot of focus on getting the right view, where the premium residential tower will have a view of Aravali, and as well as the beautiful, the beautiful circle, the beautiful green space within the campus. You can see some of the other views. Sections, again, as you see, the 4 basement was utilized for accommodating 17,000 car park. And in master planning project of this scale, the most critical space is your ground floor. Here we created what we call recessed ground or sunken ground, and also a couple of levels higher. So this space, what you see in the center, is the most interesting space. And also within the office space, we tried creating terraces. So you will have interconnected terraces. What we realized in one of our research, that if you are working in the same building, but if you're working on 2 different floors, there's a 5% chance that you meet that person once in a month. It's very important to have connectivity. So if you see this section that reflects that connectivity, similar to this section also reflects the connectivity. Again, you see the stacking of the program. So what I said, the box small concept, which we thought we will develop it later, it will have a rather more hypermarket kind of approach, will happen here and here. And then you have the retail, which is sort of scattered, merge very well with the design concept, and will have extensively food court, a residential piece, premium residential tower, then there is other residential towers, and the office block. Then we come to the last concept, which is the boulevard and terraces. So you see the boulevard here. The idea was that that brings you, the road brings you all the way up to here, and then it connects you to these nodes. The larger master plan. So again, here you see the site and setback, Vastu compliance, land use diagram, phasing, pedestrian movement, wind diagrams. Again, we tried catching wind within our campus, vehicular movement. Ground coverage has to be within 55%, ideally. If you can get lesser than that, brilliant. Drop-off zones. mm, basement extent, recreational ground coverage, nollie plan again at the ground level and at the higher level. Then we get into detail, and here you can see again all the residential, but in a different format is located here. You have all your retail happening here and offices. Some retail was here as well. And then on top of that, you have all the office building. So again, on the vehicular, if you look at the vehicular movement, either so you have a boulevard concept, you can come all the way here, you can and you can go back, as well as you can take the periphery road and you can go back. You can take the periphery road and get into the residential development as well. Again, the basement part with the mandatory green space required. Stacking of program, you can see how we stacked all the program in 3 dimensions, a little bit in a deconstructive manner, as I told you. Some of our sketches, while developing the scheme, we developed these sketches, and we felt some of the sketches really made sense, so we kept these sketches for a better explanation of the master plan. Again, all homemade, all studio created images that talks more about, not so much about building. Master plan is not so much about building. Master plan is more about, or rather beyond building. So the spaces which is building, which is maybe part of building, but it's more about the open space. It's more about that those in between space. It's more about connecting at the ground floor level. So what you see here, not so much about the building character. And that's where I said that it's a master plan project of this scale, allows you to focus on master plan and also allows you to understand your building scale, understand your building height hierarchy. So it's a great combination, a little bit of architecture, a little bit of master plan. Again, beautiful spaces in between. Some of our reference images, some of handmade images. So beautiful space. This allows us to have a green space which can be viewed, pedestrian space which you can walk over, and a vehicular, very clean, clear outer vehicular space. You will have inner vehicular space as well, because you need fire tender movement all along, all along your building. But fire tender movement, as we all know, that will not be used every day. So the idea is that when you enter it, majority of your car will get into the basement. So majority of people will be your worker. 7 million square feet, it's about 10 square meter per person. So you can imagine how many people will be coming, how many occupant will, how many people will occupy the space. So they will go straight to the basement. They don't need to, because from there they can access the office core and get into their respective office floors. But for visitors, it's a brilliant experience through drop-off. And then for the occupants, it's a beautiful space where they can walk in all the day, not in summer, but definitely in winter. And summer, there's a potential of doing a fantastic landscape where you can walk, where you can work. Again, it's a beautiful, beautiful space which is created on I will call semi-basement, or sunken court, through the sunken court. So we have added these bridge which works beautifully along with your vehicular road. So these are all your pedestrian access. You can walk around the entire campus. At the same time, your movement works pretty well. Your fire life safety, fire tender movement, or your drop-off works pretty well for visitors. At the same time, it's walkable, and it gives you a hierarchy of space. It gives you a very interesting space, which sort of enhance your master plan. Some of the reference images, again, the sketch, and here you can see it's a beautiful, beautiful space. You are at the sunken court level, and you can relate the building. You can see how how you perceive how it looks, all the other buildings. Again, you will take escalator, brings you up at the ground level, and then you can see your space around. Again, as I said, not so much about building, more about the spaces around. Some of the images, some of the aerial images, again, these are the residential development. Principles are same, that you have maximum view towards the Aravali side with the amenities at the lower level, retail, box retail in front, and all office blocks on top, and retail in center. Similar concept. Again, you will see through sections, those spaces which I talked about. Again, you see this is your box retail, and this is your scattered retail, which will be used for F&B, food and beverages, for most part of your retail. In what you see here is all your residential component and the office component. At this stage, we couldn't manage to get too much detail into residential units, but I'll show you, nevertheless, I'll show you some of them, very basic, very initial ideas. How you distribute, where the core will be, where it will be located. For the EWS, very initial studies, how the wind will come in, how you can deal with the SRI, solar reflectance index. This is more about rainwater collection, renewable energy, photovoltaics, can you use it, cross ventilation. We came up with a very nice solution. So you will find a lot of green terraces. And this is a building typology study for office. So what you see here in the gray is all your core area. When I say core, it's those number of those lifts, staircase, necessary staircase, 2 or 3, whatever you need. Then all your electrical room, your HU room, all that what we normally call a core. So here you can see different options. You can see a central core, and you can see it's very important in office building that you have a column-free space, and you have enough depth where you can get a daylight penetration. So all these are different configuration for office space. We developed right in the beginning in order to understand and in order to come with the right kind of solution for the office space. And all these are 16 options we developed right in the beginning to see what our possibility we might have. And here you can see three-dimensionally how that will look. Some of them might look very provocative to you. For example, this one, which is cantilever from both sides. And normally in India, we don't go for that much of cantilever. So just bear with me. These are very initial studies. And while doing initial studies, very important to be clutter-free. Don't think too much about practicality. That will anyway come up when you develop in detailed design. So again, if you see, if you see cantilever, because if you get hampered by too much of, if you get restricted by too many, too many issues right in the beginning, then it's very difficult to come up with something very innovative. And then of course you have those regular building solutions which you normally see around. And every building solutions comes with their own benefit and own, own issues. We can discuss about that some other day. But that's what we presented. Much refined version of this we presented to the client, and we got a great feedback. This was a design process. I hope that the entire journey of 3 different options and how we get into those 3 different options made sense to you. And I will be happy if you have any questions. You can ask me right now, or you can send me emails as well. The idea was to take you through all these issues, not to give you any opinion. This is not to form you. This is rather throw all questions at you so you can come up and form your own opinion, which will help you in your own design process. The idea was not to throw the opinion at you. The idea was to throw the process at you, so you can get deeper in the process and you can come up with innovative design solutions. Thank you so much for having me.